All right, how's everybody doing today? Okay, we're gonna be switching some stuff around. I know my screen looks a little funky at the moment because we're in the process of changing some stuff around. What I'm gonna be doing is going and sharing my screen and talking about two things that I feel really doesn't get enough attention, enough conversation. So I definitely want to make sure that that happens. So first and foremost, we're gonna go here to is your seller surveillance system putting them at risk? And I think a lot of times we don't do a good enough job stressing to sellers how crazy important it is that they understand the laws they could possibly be breaking if they're videotaping, especially with audio inside their homes while buyers are seeing the property. I think also we need to really stress to the buyers that assume you're being watched at all times in the home, outside the home, around the home. These cameras and these microphones are very sensitive, and they're picking up crazy amounts of stuff. We're hearing some crazy stuff about next door neighbors' nests are picking up conversations that buyers are having. So you need to have these conversations, and we're going to go through all that right now. Mainly just making sure we understand that the rules in Texas, the Federal Electronics Commission Privacy Act, or the ECPA, in Section 16.02 of the Texas Penal Code, prohibit audio recordings without the consent of at least one individual who's part of the conversation. So what that means, in less lawyer speak, more English, is if I'm having a conversation with someone else and I am recording the conversation, perfectly legal. One of us has to be aware of the videotape happening. If neither person who is being videotaped is not aware that they're being videotaped, or no one in the conversation is, then we are breaking the law. And that is a terrifying thing to think about and to understand. The Texas rule, commonly referred to as the one-party rule, requires at least one party to consent to recording conversations. What that rule allows is any individual to covertly and legally record his own conversations with a broker, neighbor, or other party. Whenever you speak, it is best to follow the old saying, say what you mean what you say, and the other person in the conversation may be recording everyone. It can happen at all times. Now, if you're not in that situation where you've got a nanny cam, you've got a doorbell cam, you've got a alarm system that has a recording of devices with audio, baby monitor, any of those things, and you're listening in to someone else's conversation, you are violating, and again, I'm not an attorney, so I'm not going to, but from what I understand, you are violating Section 16.2 of the Texas Penal Code and the Federal Electronic Communications Privacy Act. So you've got to make sure your sellers are aware of this when showing their home, that they cannot have this. If the seller is not present and participating in the showing, they cannot record audio, even if the conversation happens inside the seller's home. Okay. If you get caught with recorded audio of someone's conversation, you can get in some serious trouble for violating this act. So you've got to explain to your sellers, and it's a hard conversation to have. We've all had those conversations with sellers. Well, I heard over my doorbell system that they said, like, whoa, you can't listen in on their conversations. It's very important to make sure they understand. Why a seller cannot record audio of a showing. Texas law does not allow audio recording or audio monitoring of a conversation that you are not a part of. It is if the seller is not present and participating, you don't get to do it, period. What about video? Many homes today have security cameras installed that record video. Some have audio recording similar to the baby monitor, and some without. ECPA does not prohibit video recording. In fact, silent video, like from security cameras, is generally allowed as long as it isn't in an area where an individual would have reasonable expectation of privacy. Even though you're allowed to have video, you still can't have video in a bathroom or places where people have an expectation of privacy. And that is a huge thing to understand. Sometimes someone may have an urge to use the call of nature when they're watching a home. You cannot record them in the restroom, or you can get in some serious trouble. So make sure you understand. I get it. It's your house. I get that. But you cannot audio record them, and you cannot record them in places they still would have a reasonable expectation of privacy. And you have to have that conversations with your clients. And the new contract that's coming into play does a better job of explaining this as well, making sure people understand that. So, for instance, silent bathroom video recording is not allowed, but silent video recording of the foyer, kids' playroom, exterior home, and garage are permitted. So you can still have video of people walking through your home, but you cannot have audio if you are not in the conversation. That is an important conversation to have with your seller to make sure. Is your listing breaking the law? Most professional alarm and security cameras Installers are familiar with the law. Normally, they install video cameras without audio and are leery to place inside cameras in any location other than a foyer. However, when your seller is a do-it-yourselfer, you may want to ask questions. Have sellers tell you what the system will record if audio is recorded, and the seller may have a problem. If they are listening in on a conversation, they could get in some serious trouble. Now, that doesn't mean they're not doing it. So when you're working with your buyers, you have to have that conversation with them and stress it over and over again and stop a conversation of when it's starting. If you're working with a buyer and they're going through the home and they fall in love with the home, they start talking about how they pay anything for the house, you're putting your client at risk by not shutting that conversation down, because the seller may be able to hear every single thing the buyer's saying. Now, we have to prove it later, which could be difficult. So making sure you tell your clients, assume at all times when you're in someone's home, when you're in front of someone's home, in the backyard of someone's home, that you are being recorded, you're being watched, you're being listened to. Even though it's not allowed, it doesn't mean it's not happening. And don't put yourself in a situation where you lose bargaining chips or the ability to negotiate because you've already said on camera to the seller, I'll pay anything for this house, I love it, or I want this. Or what's even worse, if you say, I love this house, but I don't like this. Now you've got a seller who's angry because you don't like something that they did and they don't want to work with you and you created some bad blood. So be very careful with your clients and explaining that into 2021, there's a very good chance, no matter what you're doing, you're being watched. Assume you're being watched, assume you're being recorded, and just make your life a whole lot easier. Help your buyers be smart about surveillance. Don't discuss confidential negotiations within a home. Be careful about other over-enthusiasm of particular features in a residence. Realize most video recordings are legal. You and your client's body language and gestures sometimes tell more than you think. If talking on a telephone, make sure that the owner's neighbors can't overhear your conversation. Neighbors are often nosier than their owner. If you're really worried about someone is playing unfair, turn on a faucet. The audio tones from running water create white noise that masks voice tones and make it difficult for microphones to do their job. Don't be too paranoid, be security smart, but don't let it ruin your real purpose to be at the house. Now, at the end of the day, guys, you're excited, you're looking at homes. People realize that. Be very careful at all times and warn this to your clients about making negative comments, about insulting furniture or taste or paint colors, because someone could be listening and you could be offending them. And it'd be a whole lot harder to get this deal to work if people aren't happy with what you're saying about their likes, their tastes, their views. In addition, in Texas, like many states, recognizes several types of common law invasion of privacy claims. At its essence, invasion of privacy protects a person against unreasonable intrusion upon their seclusion, solitude, or private affairs. Even though recording may be at the seller's home, courts have found that a visiting party can have a valid claim when the homeowner overreaches. The two-sided issue, guys, and I understand that. I get that. I strongly do. Sellers want to make sure, especially if they still have belongings in the home, no one's rifling through their stuff, no one's doing anything they shouldn't be doing. So I get that, and also all shapes and sizes. But we also got to remember that the buyer has a right to look at the home. We've allowed it. We've given them the ability. They're in there with a licensed real estate professional. They need to be able to do what they need to do. Now, have agents been caught rifling through someone's home? Absolutely. Should they be caught? Absolutely. Have buyers been caught rifling through someone's home? Absolutely. So there's a reason for video, yes. Just make sure you're following the laws for your clients so you're not putting them in a horrible situation that they don't want to be in. This is the main conversation about today is we don't want to put that buyer in a negative situation, and we don't want to put that seller in a situation where they could possibly be getting sued, which nobody wants to see. Illegal recording is a felony offense in Texas, and anyone who has been recorded in violation of the law can bring a civil suit to recover $10,000 for each occurrence, and actual damages in excess of $10,000. Punitive damages, attorney's fees, and court costs. So it's very, very important to understand this is a felony charge if you get caught doing something you're not supposed to be doing. So have this conversation with your sellers multiple times. Don't let this come up at the very end, because you can get some serious help. So help your sellers avoid criminal or civil liability by encouraging them to concentrate on feedback given with consent and leave the mics and hidden cameras out of the game. So I understand the two-partiness of this, but we've got to do what we've got to do. That is this camera side. It's very controversial. Both buyers agents and sellers agents have to be paying attention to what's happening with it and how it's working, but there it is. Now I want to talk about a couple other The code of ethics. Okay, first and foremost, every real estate, every member of the National Association of Realtors now has always had to take every 3 years code of ethics training. Now, the nice thing about Texas, it used to be our ethics portion of our 2-year training counted as this training. It no longer does. Everyone has to renew their code of ethics training the way the timing has worked by December 31st of this year. So go to the Texas Realtors website. You can get to it for your information, and right here, check your status on if you have taken the training or not. When you click the link, it'll take you to this next scene, code of ethics training, check code of ethics status. It'll tell you if you have taken the course. It'll tell you what current status you're on and where you needed to go and what you need to do. There are multiple places you can go to take the class, but I know real estate agents, we wait till the last possible minute. And what I mean by that is MLS dues are due today, and it is 3 o'clock on the 30th, and I have yet to pay dues. I will be doing it when I hang up on this call. So we've got to make sure we get it done. Don't wait till the last second. Make sure you get your classes done prior to the December 31st deadline, or you can get in some serious trouble. You can lose your ability to be a member of the Association of Realtors until you've had this training, and you don't want to go that way. So get in there, get it done quickly. Go and check and see if you need to take the update. Now, that being said, we're going to get into our last section that we're going to talk about, and that is Article 10 Standard Practice 10-5. The reason we bring this up is this changed in November of last year, and in that change has brought up quite a few investigations into real estate agents since it has gone into effect. Standard of Practice 10-5 now says realtors must not use harassing speech, hate speech, epithets, or slurs based on race, color, religion, sex, handicap, female status, national origin, sexual orientation, or gender identity. Now, here's the thing. This used to say while working a real estate transaction. It no longer says that. This is a scary, scary thing for me because a third party can listen to a conversation, decide that they feel like that you've been harassing, and file a claim against you. You need to make sure what's happening, what you're saying. Any Facebook post that you make can be screenshotted and sent in as proof that you said something harassing or hate speech towards someone based on race, color, religion, sex, handicap, female status, national origin, sexual orientation, or gender identity. If you get caught, you can get a serious financial fine, or they have the ability to kick you out of the Association of Realtors, which means you can't be a member of the national, state, or local Association of Realtors, which means you can use MLS, which means it's very difficult to be able to do this profession well. You've got to make sure you're understanding what this means. Make sure you're understanding the topics that you're having, what you're liking on Facebook, what you're doing on Facebook. It is no longer has to do with while you're in a real estate transaction. It is anytime, anywhere that you are. We talked about this at the board of directors meeting on last Friday for the Greater El Paso Association of Realtors. And one of the things that was brought up was one of the cases came from a preacher while giving a sermon and said something that someone took offense to. They filed a claim against him and he was found guilty. So you got to be very careful and make sure what you're doing and what you're saying. If you're having a conversation with someone and someone else doesn't like it, they can get this done. You be very careful what you post on Facebook, what you put on Facebook, on Twitter, any of your social medias. If someone comes back and says, hey, we found what you said to be hate speech, you can get in some serious trouble. So this is one of those things where I want to make sure people understand. It's kind of a weird, I don't know what kind of lawsuits will be created of violating First Amendment rights versus these things. It's going to be weird to see. I'm not for hate speech of any kind, but I don't know what is going to be constituted as violations or not. It's going to be weird. It's a fairly new law that's gone into effect just last year. It's only been changed for about 7 months now. We're seeing multiple cases of this. So I just want to make sure everybody understands this, knows it's there, and knows that things can happen. And one of the conversations that we had in the board of directors meeting is because you don't think it's hate speech doesn't mean it's not hate speech. Because it's a slur, you don't think of it as a slur doesn't mean it's not a slur. If you say something, same race to same race, and you make a joke to someone within the same race of that could still be considered hate speech or harassing speech. So you've got to be very careful about how things work. Understand that just because you don't think it's offensive doesn't mean someone else doesn't think of it's offensive, and be prepared for this. I mean, I don't know where it's going to start, where it's going to end, and how far it's going to get, but it's something that you need to be aware of, because I don't know, you guys, as much fun as those real estate classes are, I didn't do them for nothing. I enjoyed being a real estate professional. I enjoyed being a member of the Association of Realtors, and I don't want to affect that based on a post, a comment, a conversation that I have with somebody else, being misunderstood or whatever it is. I don't consider myself in any way, shape, or form to be against any of these groups, but I can't think of everything that comes out of my mouth 24 hours a day. So think about it, understand it, be very careful before you write something on Facebook. This is just something that people, especially if you write it down, it's very easy for people to screenshot it and use that as evidence against you later. And a lot of times, even if it's not their correct content, we've had situations where people have complained against, as the broker, complained against my agents for horrible things they said to them when they sent me cut up copies of conversations where it does include the back and forth and all the conversations that were had and all of the conversation of that exact thing. So be careful. People can do some weird things if they're in the right mood. It's just something to think about. It's terrifying, and we need to be aware of it. And I just want to make sure this gets in front of people's eyes, because it can come back on you guys a lot. This is not just when you're doing real estate. It's at any time, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. If someone is found to be say that you're saying something that you shouldn't be saying, they can file a complaint against you. So I have someone saying I can't get on. I don't know what that is. Is that Brian saying that? Brian, are you telling me you can't get on? I don't know. Oh, he's on a call. So he's letting me know he's not going to get on to speak today. So I just wanted to bring this up, guys. Make sure you guys understand where you are, what's happening, know where we stand. Read every once in a while the Code of Ethics. I will say, Paso, Doug Hamilton does a fantastic job of making sure every board meeting we have a different topic about a part of the Code of Ethics. And if you don't read the Code of Ethics and have an understanding of what the Code of Ethics actually says, you can get in trouble. This is something that you've agreed to sign, you've agreed to do, you've agreed to follow, and make sure you know what it's saying and what it's doing. That's pretty much all I have today, guys. I don't want it to be crazy long. I know it's not the happiest of conversations, but it's stuff that we need to be aware of and think about. Make sure you're having a conversation with your seller that they cannot have audio video at any time in a transaction. And make sure you tell your buyers, guys, even though they can't do it, doesn't mean they're not doing it. So make sure you're very careful about what you say, what you do when you're in someone else's home. Don't have the conversations about what should we offer at the house. Don't have conversations about how much we can pay, how much is in our bank account. Don't have those conversations in the listing, in the home that you're viewing. Just a safe thought process there. With that, guys, it's pretty much all I've got today. I just want to make sure you see it, you think about it. I hope everybody has a great 4th of July weekend. And with that, appreciate it, guys. Have a great day.